Aside from Park Geun-hye, another ex-president, Myung-bak, is in the spotlight over corruption charges. They aren't the only former leaders to see their reputations tarnished after stepping out of the top office. Shin Se-min examines why there are so many recurring instances of top political figures being mired in scandal and disgrace, and if we're reaching a turning point.
2 winters have passed since South Korea showed the world the power of democracy. And finally, on Friday afternoon, the sentencing of the ex-president, brought down by the candlelight protests, will be beamed live around the nation. But former President Park Geun-hye isn't the only ex-Korean leader embroiled in corruption and other crimes. In fact, there's a long list of wrongdoers. The arrest of South Korea's 17th president, Myung-bak, who is now detained here in Seoul Eastern Detention Center, adds to the long list of former leaders whose reputations were tarnished towards the end of their tenure or post-presidency. And they all have something in common. They were all mired in corruption scandal, including themselves, their relatives, or close aides. While it's a shame Korea has been lumbered with so many corrupt leaders, political analysts say the legal strife facing the nation's 2 most recent ex-leaders shows Korea is moving in the right direction.
What we're seeing with 2 of our corrupt former presidents may be a turning point for South Korea's democracy and constitutionalism. It also shows the country now has the maturity to deal with such abuses of power.
Korea's recent history is blighted with scandal-ridden former leaders. Ex-presidents Chun Do-hwan and No Tae-woo, both former army generals, were found guilty of mutiny and corruption and spent time behind bars. Kim Young-sam and Kim Dae-jung also saw their legacies tarnished by corruption. Not directly, but their sons were convicted for receiving kickbacks. Another former president, No Mo-hyun, was investigated for alleged corruption involving his family members. He later committed suicide, and the case was dropped. And the thread that runs through all these cases? Dirty money. Experts say Korea's rapid economic development, with its cozy links between the government and big businesses, meant it was always more likely former leaders and their families would fill their pockets through dubious practices.
It facilitated and expedited the development, but the downside of it is that it became a fertile ground for corruption and slush funds and so on and so forth. And because of the presidency that we have, of course, it's the subject of the constitutional amendment. President has a concentrated power. We call it imperial presidency.
And that, he and others say, shows the necessity of revising the Constitution. President Moon Jae-in is currently attempting to push through a government-drafted bill on constitutional changes that include weakening the powers of his office. South Korea is a vibrant democracy, but its executive-style presidency allows the country's leader to wield an extreme amount of power, giving rise to winner-takes-all politics, which critics say enables corruption while reducing representation for opposition voices. And those who back President Moon's plan say the decentralization of power will lay the path for a healthier democracy. There's also hope the new constitutional system, if accepted by the Korean people, will lessen the chance of future presidents making the disgraced exits so commonly seen in the past. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.